Welcome to this week's episode.
Ne-
Why is there such
Never
a
let me
long
get through it
pause? Every week,
because
such a long.
no, you know why I do the
It's
long pause?
no, I
No,
don't.
one of
Tell
mine.
me.
Welcome. Because I got it out. Because sometimes when there's a video of it, it starts if I'm already talking with my mouth open in this freeze frame, and it's awful. So I've learned that you have to sit there for a second when you first start recording.
Why don't you just keep your mouth shut so you don't have
If
a
if
wide
I'm
open?
talking and there's a freeze frame of it, I look like an idiot.
I'm going to go back in all the videos that we've got because we've been uploading a bunch to YouTube. And I'm going to go and I'm just going to put the preview thumbnail post of you with your mouth open.
I look like a fat toad.
I don't
No
think that's.
offense to all the toads out there. You're great. You're great. I'd lick every one of you if I could.
Well, tell our wonderful listeners about our fantastic returning guest
I didn't even get to
today.
introduce you or myself yet.
Oh,
So rudely
I'm
interrupted.
known. I'm
Rudely
known.
interrupted. Look,
Dude, I
I'm
can't help
Jay
myself.
Davis, Dr. Jay Davis, sometimes affectionately referred to as Jay Nasty. This is Marijuana Mind. You are adjective of the week, inspirational, Cynthia Brewer. I like
True.
that look, the very pensive look when I said that. And we have a returning guest, actually, very important VIP,
He really is.
Ty Perdue of Chicago. Of Chicago,
The
you're a
Ty
Chicago
Perdue.
guy. The Ty
Yeah.
Perdue.
Almost out a year up here, I guess. Kind of. I got the hat and everything. So
Have
You
you
got the
experienced
facial
a full
hair.
winter?
yeah, I've not been shaded. It's pretty cold. It was like negative 33 on Christmas. It was pretty bad. But yeah, growing the beard out a little bit to stay warm.
All right, here's a little.
It's full. It's a very full facial
It is
hair that we've
full
got.
and dark.
I know.
I'm jealous of the darkness of it.
No, but thank you guys for having me. It's always fun being on.
We love having Ty on because Ty has been a part of the show since the inception. He does all of the social media, but he also has a big kid job like every day of the week, recruiting for the company that you work for. Tell us about the company that you're working for up in Chicago, Ty.
Yeah, so my company is actually kind of split into two parts. One side is called Instant Alliance. We do a lot of tech recruiting, like software developers, that kind of thing. And then our newer area is called Growing Talent, and working within the cannabis industry, trying to help place anything from dispensary workers all across the state, all the way up to like more of the executive level and directors and things like that. So been working really all over the country trying to place people, but
it's like the ganja LinkedIn.
Yeah, definitely. It's been crazy to see in the last year how LinkedIn, like cannabis, has become more normalized, and like there's influencers on LinkedIn and stuff, and it's interesting, but it's cool seeing cannabis like be so normalized.
I think it's funny to be called a LinkedIn influencer.
Yeah,
like,
I'm trying to get there. I'm trying slowly.
Oh, hashtag goals. Well, Ty, just so our listeners know, just in case they have a need, what types of cannabis companies should be contacting or utilizing the services of your part of Alliance?
Yeah, honestly, anything. Like I said, we've done dispensaries and more of the like producing and those types of companies. We've also, placed art directors and those types of positions at those companies too that are trying to get, the more their marketing going. Right now, we're working with more like of the news media companies within cannabis. So really anything, when it comes to cannabis. It's interesting too, being like right here in Chicago, we touch a lot of the surrounding states. So here, it's kind of more similar to Florida, I'd say. Like we have like Sunnyside, we have Curaleaf, just the major ones really. But
the players.
But we do a lot in Michigan too, and that's kind of like the Wild West and lots of mom and pop shops. So anything from helping the billion-dollar companies to helping some of the smaller guys and everything in between. So it's really interesting, but definitely can help candidates and companies, whatever you're looking for, whatever, love to try to help people out.
So big or small does not matter. MSO, mom and pop, if you need help finding talent that are qualified and all of that, Ty would do the hard legwork for you to get candidates. And you do C-suite, you do entry level, you do all of it. And I
Exactly.
know that you actually found a bunch of people some really cool jobs, and the salaries are good. So like if they're candidates that want placement, does it work like that too?
A little bit, we've talked to, thousands and thousands of people at this point, whether they made a job or didn't, or it wasn't the right fit. But, I know everything about you now and I know what you're looking for. So when a company calls, we already have a slot of, thousands of people that we've talked to. It doesn't even require, us going out and finding new people, but we continue to do that too. So, yeah, people reach out all the time, and I definitely I don't just have something up my sleeve to get you a job always, but I'm more than happy to talk to people, and I love hearing what they're looking for, what they kind of do, and their background, their strengths are, and then maybe one day down the road that opportunity does come up and you're the first person on the call. So just really building a lot of relationships from people to more of the business side and everything, but it's really enjoyable, and it's cool getting to see people just, not selling anything to people, but getting to put them in better careers, better jobs, and make companies operate better, I guess,
Yeah, it's only been, it's been a year, but like in only a year, you've taken off big time, because it was a line of work that you were not familiar with. You knew
No.
cannabis.
Yeah.
But you went into something that was completely just against the grain. And instead of like struggling, you actually kind of found your footing more so than when you worked with me at the lab. But
Maybe.
this is a big deal.
No,
I feel like people that are, like talented, smart, good workers are going to do well in most fields that they're put into. And that's
Ty is incredibly organized. He's by
Mhm.
far one of the most organized and patient and like just grounded people I've ever met, and that's why we're still friends even after he's left. And I will always we will always be friends, because Ty was like the yin to my yang at work. I was obscenely aggressive and brash and very emotionally all the time. You know me. People know me. Okay. And then Ty was like the opposite. So the balance was there. And I miss him daily. And so, but Ty is getting married
So long to
to
his
a
work wife,
lovely
Cynthia
lady.
Brewer.
Yes, me and my fiance Brenda are getting married at close to the end of the year in October down back in Florida, where all the family is.
Also known as Brindisi, just so we know,
Yes,
for the listeners.
Brindisi, yeah. But yeah, very exciting, and amid all the chaos of trying to plan all the details of that. But one thing we did plan, and we were talking about a couple weeks ago, I actually asked Cynthia to be our officiant for the wedding, so that will be really, really cool. And she fortunately accepted, of course.
She said yes. I will be marrying Ty and Brenda in a not together polygamy style, but like in an appropriate ceremony. And I'm going to try really hard to do right by you guys by not cussing a lot and by using funny stories, maybe.
I'm sure it'll be fun.
A lot of prayer. A lot of prayer. We're going to do a lot of kneeling and praying so that we touch on. I'm just kidding. No, I am touched and honored and so freaking excited. I am a notary in Florida, and so that does give me permission to authorize different documents and also to officiate weddings. So
honestly, you're like the perfect person, because we thought about it for a while, and like you're right in the middle, both of us, but you're not on either of our family sides, and you're already, you're a notary and stuff. It just like it really just
I got nothing to lose.
And she's a rabbi. It's perfect.
There you go.
Yeah. I actually, yes, I do. You know what I really want to do? If it was, I don't know if it's legal in Florida, but I want to do a same-sex marriage. Mm-hmm. I would love to be a part of that.
They're not really any different, except for you just have to be more careful with the, the pronouns.
Oh, those freaking pronouns again. Like, just remind me at the end of the show what mine are so I don't forget and all of that. And I'm so excited for this wedding, and I just can't wait. So, and to be a part of it is even cooler. I've been drafting up my part in hopes to I just want somebody to cry. That's it.
Don't worry, my mom's gonna
out of
give me a mess.
love and like being
Cynthia,
touched
if
by my
I
words.
bite the big one, if I bite the bullet, I want you to
Like
do
die?
I want you to do a eulogy for me.
I will eulogize
Sans
the shit
notes.
out of you, Justin
Sans
Davis.
notes.
Justin Davis, I will make it a rhyme if you want. I will rap your eulogy for you.
Really? Oh my God. I it's like I
I
almost
know.
have to fake my death now so that I can witness this.
I'll just have you murdered. It's fine. We'll have this all taken care of. So speaking of
Murder?
rapping, no, rapping. It's a segue, Justin. That's what we call these. The segue rapping. Let's talk about Afro Man and his little run-in with the law recently. Ty, did you hear about this story?
Yeah, I mean, I think most people are familiar with rap or Afro Man. You know, at least when I was in middle school, high school, he was like the weed guy, Because I Got High, Colt 45, all those old silly songs. But he's still around
Justin,
and kicking.
Are you aware? Are you
know.
familiar with Colt 45 and Because I Got High?
Come on. I was into hip hop before you were.
Okay. So
Tried to go to class.
that makes some sense. Yeah, he tried to go to class, but then he got high. It's just a bunch of like situational, everyday pothead stories, but he couldn't accomplish these tasks because he kept getting high. It was it's genius. One of the greats, I would say, but he got raided by the police for, big surprise, marijuana.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what they found, but they raided him because they suspected he sings about having marijuana. He probably does. But they raided his place, took all his plants, took all his stash and everything. And in response, he uploaded all of his security cam footage and dropped a new song and made a music video out of the raid of his house. So I guess a good way to turn that into.
Yeah, that was brilliant. It was brilliant.
What if this was, do you think this was staged? Like, is that a thing with rappers where they were like, call the cops and be like, I could totally rediscover my career and relaunch everything because it's been a long time since that song came out and nobody really remembers what I was doing until now. And then I could turn it into a music video.
Yeah, I did wonder, like with all the swatting and people doing that kind of thing, I wondered, like, you could just call it in on yourself, but I don't know. Honestly, great idea though. Funny to see like kind of mockery of the SWAT teams and police and all that, but really funny. Good on him.
Well, now he's got a music video and that's going to be awesome. So
can we have a link? Can we have a link to that video on one of our social media sites?
Yeah. Because Ty's here, we can ask for stuff like that and they'll actually get done. Usually when we talk about, hey, we're going to link this nonprofit in the storyline, we totally just don't do any of it. Or the video. Yeah, we just assume it gets done. But yes, no, this time we can actually probably link all of that footage because Ty's here and he's way smarter than we are. So I do need to give a shout out before I forget, because forgetting seems to be the hardest thing for me to remember lately. And I wanted to say happy birthday to my amazing, most awesome little sister in the whole wide world. Her birthday was on the 9th. I went to go send a gift like I do from time to time, highly inappropriate. Like, I think it was a wrecking ball, Miley Cyrus. I don't even know, but it was a gift and it didn't go through. And so it looked like I forgot her birthday and I feel horrible. And I even texted her because we were talking about scratchy lotteries. And so this is my attempt to, for forgiveness, that I will bring it up on the podcast. And I didn't forget. I just didn't remember. That's all.
Speaking of that, I like that you are, see, like my segue here. I like that you are doing the podcast from a truck stop.
Well, I frequent a lot of truck stops for fun. Personally and professionally. No, I'm actually in the parking lot of the DOT Transportation and Turnpike offices. So it's the heartbeat of the Turnpike right here and there, surrounded by this luxurious.
It's really interesting if people have a chance to see the video of this. If you upload it above your head, I assume it's a sunroof, but what it really looks like with the view, not the current view, thanks for ruining it, is it looked like part of the M from the Marijuana Mind logo.
Okay.
That was all strategic. That's strategery. Yes, 100%. No, I'm at a truck stop because I couldn't make it. I got the oil change. heading up to Gainesville. I was trying to make it into your acoustically, deficient office so that I could be there sounding and echoing with you, but I just couldn't drive fast enough. And there was like this line of motorcycle cops that were, it could have been a procession. I don't know. It just seemed like they were a gang, like a MC. They had cuts and colors. They threw up a symbol. I just didn't want to mess with them, so I pulled off into this lovely establishment paid for by the taxpayers of
I've
Florida.
been there, but it's usually on a boat, but I've been in your position.
You've been on a boat in a truck stop?
No, but like having to rush somewhere and then stop and pull over and do the podcast.
Yeah, doesn't it suck when you're on your boat and you have to stop and do things? Yeah, no, nobody feels sorry for you, Justin. Let's get back to Canna topics, because your Canna topic is just making us all feel bad about ourselves that we don't have boats. I have 0 boats. Ty, what about you?
No boats. Trying to find someone with a boat for this summer. I want to get out into the boat scene here. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you just need a friend with a boat. You don't actually have to have one.
I know. I need to make some friends. That's the problem.
Justin will take you out. Let's talk a little bit about, so recently there was a study conducted by a lot of physicians that got together, and they wanted to see how cannabis and surgery would be tied together. Like if there's anything when you are about to get surgery on any ailment whatsoever, how they would advise you differently if you were an open and legal cannabis user. And one of the funny things that I read in this article was that cannabis users tend to need a lot more anesthesia and like Novocaine when they have procedures done. And it is common for some heavy cannabis users, mild cannabis users, to actually go through the anesthesia or Novocaine quicker and start feeling or coming out of it. How freaking scary. And I know this from personal experience when I had my root canal done by your brother-in-law, and he actually gave me the shot. And when they were shoving what I can only assume was needles and all types of garbage into my like empty root, I actually started to feel everything.
Stop describing your weekend.
No, it was such a traumatic process to have someone with all their might push something into your tooth canal area. But I could feel things. I was coming out of the Novocaine quicker, and he mentioned that, and then the study comes out. What are your thoughts? You're a doctor, right?
Well,
you don't even sound confident.
I mean, first of all, I guess, is it limited to local anesthesia, this study, or are we talking about all kinds of anesthesia, including general anesthesia?
General anesthesia.
I have an anecdote. Like a year and a half ago, I had a procedure. Nothing crazy, but I had to get put under. That's the only time I've ever been put under, and I was kind of looking forward to seeing the video of me when I'm silly waking up. They gave me fentanyl. I don't know if they gave me something stronger because of cannabis, but I was so surprised how the moment I woke up, within 30 seconds, I was 100% sober. I didn't.
Wait, is fentanyl is that the proper anesthesia medicine?
At Shands, it is apparently.
Sometimes for conscious sedation, they'll combine fentanyl with some kind of benzodiazepine.
Okay, so like a little cocktail, and it puts you to sleep under.
Yeah,
when
for
you combine
maybe
the
an hour and a half, not long at all, but it was instantly woke up and I felt fine and I was clear and everything. So I didn't think of it, but I wonder if that is because I was using cannabis and maybe woke up a little quicker. I don't know.
Yeah, no hangover because it wears off. But I mean, traditionally, when you get put under anesthesia, you do have a hangover, because I've been under a bunch of times when I was younger and into adult. Well,
there's different kinds of anesthesia.
I like the hard kind.
Don't we all?
Where you're trying to shake
there's
you
certain
awake.
things like you could give someone IV propofol and it puts them to sleep immediately, but they wake up very quickly. Kind of usually no. Usually it's a little.
Yeah, they did that when I got my tooth out. This is real life, Justin. They put me under temporarily to pull out a tooth when I was younger, and it only took 15 minutes.
Yeah, but I don't know why, general anesthesia of any kind, even if it's not completely general, but like what Ty had, is very different from local anesthesia with something like lidocaine. And so I wonder if that study is true for both, because it would be probably some kind of different mechanism than if one or the other, because if it's interesting. I'd have to learn a little bit more before I venture to give a hypothesis.
I like that you say that you need to learn more about this. So that's interesting. I have had local anesthesia before I was a cannabis user, and being awake for a procedure, for the record, is the most cruel and like sadistic thing ever. Because if you're going to slice open someone's skin and you think, oh, it's fine if we just give them a local, and they witness it, I have PTSD from that. Like, I might not have felt everything, but I saw blood, and that was traumatic. And that was really, yeah. So to all the doctors out there, just put everybody under ether, get some ether. Everybody goes under. Is that not a thing anymore?
That just makes me think my dad had to get surgery on his eye recently. His like eyelids are a little heavy. So they wanted to like cut some of or like get rid of some of the heavier eyelids so he could open his eyes easier. And they just did, yeah, well, kind of, but they just did local anesthetic, and then they used a laser, and he said he could just smell burning skin and stuff. And he was like, it was really not cool sitting there like smelling myself burning and stuff. Like I would want to be under.
It's traumatic.
Yeah.
It's traumatic. I feel like if it warrants going all the way under, but then you have to have an anesthesiologist there to monitor, and they can be incredibly expensive and sometimes drunk, I think. I don't know. Not all of them, but like 75 to 90%.
I have a funny ether story if you want to hear it.
Yeah, I love ether.
I mean, it's just not, it's really ether made me think of it. But when I was in college, I was trying to get into med school. So you have to do certain things. So, like acts of service and show that you're a researcher. So I was doing research in this lab at UF in Shands, as a matter of fact. And it was for an anesthesiologist. And
full circle.
Yeah, full circle. And he was sedating mice with a common local anesthetic. See, full circle even more, but called halothane. So you sometimes use that, to knock people out and whatever. And he would take all of these mice, these cute little white mice, and he would knock them out with halothane and then inject them with E. coli into their gut. And under the hypothesis that I think the hypothesis was maybe that there was a lower mortality rate with the ones that had undergone anesthesia than the ones that got injected without the anesthesia. Anyways, I don't know what the results were. I was just there in the lab, I was a college student. But here's the thing, is that at the end of the experiment, you had quite a lot of mice that didn't die, right? Some of them would die, but a lot of them didn't die. And so they told me it was my job to take these mice, all of these living mice that had been injected with E. coli, and to put them in ether. So I'd have access as a college student to all of these things of ether and pure alcohol as well, but that's a different story. But so I would take this ether and I would, I was supposed to stick it in with all these living mice, and they would get knocked out and they would go to sleep, and that was it. Then you dispose of them.
Forever?
Forever.
Okay, so you were instructed to kill the surviving mice that made it through this experiment that you guys conducted.
Yes.
Because they survived, they then had to be euthanized.
And because they were part of the experiment, I actually questioned. I was like, well, but they're alive. And they're like, no, we've injected them with a potential human pathogen, so that you got to destroy them. And they, the experiment's over. And that's how it works. So I thought about it, after I killed some, but I felt badly. And I thought about it a little bit, because they're very cute little white mice, right? And I was like, well, wait a second. Like, this is E. coli is everywhere. And we have E. coli. And let's be honest, like, this wasn't even enough E. coli to kill the mice. And it's not like they're weird, strains of E. coli. It's just regular,
and you're not going to eat
E. coli,
mouse.
right?
You're not going to eat it.
Right.
Okay.
So, I was like, I can't do it anymore. I was like, I can't kill you anymore. I'm sorry, mice. So I started this whole process where I would, sedate them a little bit with the ether, but not quite enough to kill them. So they looked like, like they were faking their death, but they weren't, they were still fine. And I take it out just in time. And I shoved them all in my backpack. And sometimes I would like leave with like 30 mice that were like semi-sleeping in my backpack, sometimes not sleeping enough. And I would like go out of the hospital and I would let them go in little fields and like be free little white
I
mice.
feel like this story is too good to be true, that we have like a Dora the Explorer, like vigilante freeing laboratory mice
And my
during
little
college.
backpack filled with like semi-sleeping mice.
Yes. And
Yes.
then, so how many survived the emancipation?
I probably, freed a few hundred before I got fired.
So before you got fired, I love that part. So you did it for the right cause, Justin. And
yeah, and I somehow still got into medical school. The fact that I got fired
that's the part.
Didn't somehow translate into the recommendation for medical school, and I
think it's crazy that you had ether mice in your backpack and that you still became a doctor. That says a lot about the medical program.
I wanted to help. I wanted to help people, or the little white mice.
I'm with you. Yeah, what you did was very noble, and they're gonna sing songs about you and your name for years and years, hundreds of years after you're gone.
Hopefully I don't. Hopefully I
eulogize you.
The little mice will, like in the little mouse village, and maybe the gnomes.
Oh my gosh, I feel like this is way too much material for me not to capitalize on, but I'm going to try to keep myself under control because there's so many jokes at once, but I'll pace them out. That's such a heartwarming story. I don't even know where to go from there. I really thought this was gonna go from like, I used to get ether and hang out with ladies, and then like have a dark story there. But this is actually like almost a Disney movie, like a really messed up Pixar Disney movie. But this is your life, Justin. Congratulations.
Yeah.
All right. The next topic I want to talk about, unless somebody else has one they want to bring up, is I want to talk about this growing just Karen Janice meets Nancy type anger all over the internet, all over the TV in Mount Dora. And I say Karen because they're not all Karens. There's new ones. There's like Janice. That seems to be a new one for Karens. Now, Ty, tell for the listeners that may not be privy to this type of information, what is a Karen to you?
Try not to offend anyone.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
Everybody gets offended on this show. It's an equal opportunity offensive show.
Yeah, I guess the idea of a Karen is like the upset mom that wants to see the manager, but applied to anyone. People kind of being the main character, everything is about them.
Everything's a fight.
And yeah, everything is a fight, their way or the highway. I want to speak to your supervisor, that type person that we all know and love.
A little bit self-centered, self-important, not very flexible. Entitled. That's
exactly, entitled.
Well, I say that because most of the Karens that are all over the internet are usually, they are upset about some sort of injustice that they have experienced, and someone else will film this just outburst, you could say, after aforementioned injustice has already occurred. But that's not the problem. The problem's not the injustice that she feels, it's her and her behavior handling it. So people will film these women that are like trying to, get out of the car and like argue with somebody because they're taking their spot in the parking lot. There's women that are arguing in the grocery stores, talking to managers at the restaurants.
You'd be mad if somebody took your parking spot. I mean, you're waiting to pull in there and someone
would never get out of the car
and goes in.
I would passively aggressively give them 2 middle fingers from the inside of my safety of my vehicle and then park as far away from them as possible as to not get confronted. That was passive aggressive.
You know what I do?
Saves lives.
Passive aggressive sometimes in parking lots. I probably shouldn't.
Everything.
But no, so sometimes how like maybe someone gets in their car and sometimes there's a legitimate reason, right? But let's say it's like a crowded parking lot. Someone's just like sitting there doing nothing and they know that you're waiting in a very kind of crowded situation to park there.
How do you know their story? How do you know
you see this like in San Francisco a lot of times, and people are just like lolly. They're just taking their time. They know that parking is at a premium and you're like waiting there and there's traffic having to go around, all that, right? It drives me nuts. So my little
I think we just figured out exactly what a Karen is. Okay.
This
By
is-
example, you
But I don't
lead
get
by
out of the car,
example.
right? I what I do is in these special circumstances when it's extreme, is I might just, park kind of next to them, like parallel parking that might happen to block them in. And I just, get out of the car and pretend like I'm going where I'm going and be like, hey, take your time. I will be back in 10 minutes. Don't worry.
That's actually that's not passive aggressive. That's a very confrontational move. You're blocking them from getting out. You're telling them that you're doing it intentionally, and then you're making them wait for you, which
But I say
really
very,
excites their anger.
hey, don't worry about it. Take your time. I'll be back in 10 minutes. And don't worry.
Okay, so
Listen, it works. It usually works.
I'm so surprised you haven't had your ass kicked in a parking lot yet, but you're still young. So the reason we're talking about Karens is because there is this coalition, you could say, of Central Floridian residents in the Mount Dora area that have been voicing for a long time now their distaste for the smell, the odor, the aroma, and the noise coming from a local MSO's cultivation location. So, and I don't really have to have anonymity here because it's all over the place. They're very vocal Karens. It's for Curaleaf Mount Dora's cultivation facility. And I've been there. It's amazingly clean, immaculate. Like most of our MSOs, they are a well-established company that knows what they're doing. But this happened with MedMen in Eustis. This happened with Curaleaf in Homestead. This has happened with various grows that are local or around local neighborhoods where these people are just, they're going to the county commissioners, they're offering testimony, they're calling the news to do interviews. They want to, in Mount Dora, go to Tallahassee this year, and they want to advocate and lobby for local municipalities to override the OMMU, so the regulating body in Florida, so that they can pick and choose when these companies and cultivation facilities enter their neighborhoods. What do you think about that? I know, right?
I think that I think that their problem is with marijuana. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I could complain. There's a skyscraper being constructed across the street from my apartment, and like it's kind of loud. There's dust in the air and stuff. I'm not gonna go to City Hall and like bitch about that. Like
playing devil's advocate. When is it noisy? When is it noisy, Ty?
All day and till like midnight. Like,
oh, okay,
yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I thought they had to stop at a certain time, like quiet time.
Probably, but I don't know. I just look at it like you could have a rubber factory building next to you or something. Like there's a million, like whatever it is, it could be loud, it could be smelly or whatever, but like I don't know what like authority you have to go to the state. Like they're not breaking laws, they're not doing anything wrong. They got the zoning permit, I'm sure. I don't think they're 8 years in their facility or whatever without all the proper permits and all that. So they didn't break any laws or whatever. And
it's probably not actually in a neighborhood, right? It's probably just somewhere.
Not.
Yeah.
So it's a hard call because they're doing everything right, I'm sure, as Ty said, and after the fact to try to shut them down, it's not very fair.
Well, and I don't know if they're trying to shut them down exactly, but they're trying to get the power back to regulate these types of companies, cannabis companies, I guess specifically. If it was a company that was making rubber tires and the smell was intense and it was loud, but it wasn't in a neighborhood, I don't know if they would take the time to go to the county. They might, but what Ty said was really telling as far as it's cannabis that they don't like, because the people that were providing testimony were talking about the offensive aroma, whereas I don't think cannabis cultivation facilities, they smell like weed. They definitely, it does not matter. It always smells like weed, and it smells phenomenal.
There's this area in California, Central California, that when you're driving through it, it's miles long, and the stench is, you can't even breathe. But it doesn't smell like, unfortunately, it doesn't smell like cannabis, or it'd be amazing, but it smells, like crap, like pig shit or cow shit. It's awful.
Over
And
by the brackish water. That's but like they don't bitch about that. Well, do you think cannabis smells offensive?
personally, no, I think it smells great.
Hey, you're just lucky you're not next to like a crematorium or something. That would be offensive, but like
A
I don't know.
crematorium sounds like an ice cream shop. Is it
Not one you
a
want to eat
cremation?
at.
I mean, I understand if
It's Ty
you're
and Brenda's crematorium.
if you're in a neighborhood and there's stenches and you feel like it's infringing on your neighborhood, I understand the concerns with that, but it certainly shouldn't be limited to cannabis companies. It should be some kind of ordinance in general, just like noise. There has to be some mitigation of smells, but
I agree with that. Yeah.
or burning.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
can't
you
burn,
can't
anywhere you want.
you can't really mitigate the cultivation smell that cannabis makes because it is very fragrant. The aroma is strong, but I love it. It smells better than brackish water, tires, and a garbage dump. Like there's a lot of things I would much rather not smell than cannabis. I love it, but they are very much against the aroma and the sound that the fans are putting off the big. I mean, it's a big facility, but there's big facilities throughout the country, and I wonder what's going to happen if people like this get to say where people get to grow, because like you said, in California, they're allowed to grow all over the place. Here it's very limited, and there's only 22 license holders. So if they
Yeah,
pass anything in Tallahassee,
I think kind of what Justin was getting at, like, I think if you approach this as just, we should put more thought into zoning and that there's smells with different industry, just whatever you're building there, that's part of it with noise and all that. Sure. But they're just targeting marijuana. So like, I don't think that has a lot of ground to stand on, because offensive smells is just an opinion. That's one person to another. But I could totally see going to the state and saying, when we do zoning, when you approve these things, that has to be a considered factor. No matter what the business is. Sure.
They approve nurseries. So when you apply as a nursery, you're not applying as an entity. Those people that are growing were once nurseries. They were making, flowers and plants and mums and all these other things that they then transitioned into a cannabis grow. So because the nursery won the license, you would have to pretty much say, if you win a license as a nursery, you have to move your operation to a place that's zoned appropriately for the neighborhoods.
It's really messy.
I mean, I don't know that there's that many nurseries that are in neighborhoods. A big
every nursery that won a license in Florida every license for cannabis in Florida was once a nursery.
But they weren't right. But they're not. But these are not just like your neighborhood little nursery. These are big farms that are growing things. So they're not going to be in a neighborhood to begin with. And there's going to be smells associated with an industry like a nursery, just having to do with manure and fertilization.
Well, true. Good point. I think the argument that they've got is that this is not one of the nursery locations. This is an ancillary location. So the Curaleaf company actually won the license in South Florida. And that's, they're operating out of the licensed nursery that won the license. And then they created an ancillary grow location like many clients do in Florida. They have multiple cultivation facilities as to help their production.
But
those are not
is that
nurseries.
It's not like they could just go in wherever they want and start doing it. There's got to be a lot of regulations as to where they can put these facilities. And you either, you have to have general rules about any industry when you're talking about zoning, that if you know that they're going to be producing some kind of pollutant, whether it's smell or sound.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to see like if there's much similar conversation for like all through South Florida, especially in like the rural areas. There's like the massive cow and like chicken and like they're just the packed houses, like wall to wall animals. It doesn't smell good over there. But like, would those people complain if a farm was built next to them? Just like
I wonder
farm?
if we should pull that info. I'll get on that info and find out how many people really voiced concerns all the way to the commissioners and taking it to the Capitol on scent offenses. I was offended by a scent or an aroma. But I know when MedMen had a bunch of people calling the news, those people would be interviewed on the fence line of the MedMen cultivation facility in Eustis. And I'm thinking to myself, I've been there so many times. It's out in the middle of nowhere. Okay. The next neighbor is a while from you. Okay. So these people are just doing the interview next to the fence line, and they're complaining that their scent, the scent is too strong in the noise. And they probably live on the other side of town. They're just trying to make the fight
They're
big.
targeting
And
cannabis
yes,
because they don't like cannabis.
full circle to Ty's point. That was beautiful. Well done, gentlemen. Yes. Is there any current events, topics, or items to touch on that you guys have? Because I just bulldogged the whole episode.
I'll just say, you know, being in Florida previously and only having like access to the medical scene, and of course, Florida is like the only southern state that's been really on board. You know, I think now Georgia, Bama is getting there, but you
Tennessee, it looked like Tennessee's going to do it. Alabama did it, but they very minimal, and Mississippi so far ish, all kind of.
Yeah, but like none of us have had the ability to like, you know, go to those states and try out what their market's like. And up here, I'd say it's not quite the same as Florida. It is recreational in Illinois, but it is similar in the sense it's very clean, very almost pharmaceutical in a way, like very doctor's office, like when you go to dispensaries, nothing on display.
Clinical, yeah.
Yeah, very clinical. I hopped across the border into Michigan, and it is like the Wild West, and there's like pot hanging from the walls. It's incredibly cheap and a lot better quality. It's insane seeing what like the absolute opposite of vertical looks like, and having mom and pops everywhere. And I don't know.
What did you buy in Michigan?
I bought 32 grams for $90, and I bought 5 grams of wax for $100.
I bought a strain called Meat Breath. I bought some flour and pre-rolls in Litchfield, Michigan from a mom and pop shop. And because I was a medical patient in Florida, I got a discount and I got pushed to the front of the line like a celebrity. Yeah. And then they sold me something called Meat Breath. It was horrible.
I want to clarify though. So you have these mom and pop shops in Michigan, which is great, but are they selling their own, you know, little boutique cannabis strains, or are they really just, you know, it's like the little stores we have in the corner here that are like little 7-Elevens or Jiffies that are basically.
It was like the guy last week, the retail guy last week that would buy from different companies.
Right. So I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong. Like I think it should be horizontally integrated, and why should only, you know, multi-million-dollar companies be able to get into it? Ridiculous. But I like the story more of the little boutique growers.
Yeah. I like the price point. The price point is amazing. We're getting exploited down here as patients, Ty. You know that.
Yeah, well, and I mean, like he's saying too, that plays into the price point. Is like it is mom and pop dispensaries and mom and pop growers and all that. So like this small dispensary is one of a kind, doesn't have any other locations, and they're buying from 8 local farms. So all the farms have to compete with each other if they want to sell at a good price, you know. And I don't know, just like the quality was way better. The experience of actually being able to buy it, look at what you're buying, know what you're buying, and everything was just a lot better about having it horizontal like that and really giving access to everybody. I don't see a lot of benefit from, I don't know, they call it medical in Florida, but like it doesn't necessarily seem safer. It doesn't necessarily seem better. I don't know. I don't really see why putting all those barriers up it does anything but help rich people make more money.
I think that's the only reason it was really put up.
That's the only reason.
Yeah.
You've discovered the secret behind the cannabis industry in Florida. You are, yes, there you go, Nancy.
All right, we're done.
Yes, we can just shut down everything now. But yeah, it's exactly right. It's money. And with the ballot initiative in Florida going forward, a lot of attention, a lot of support for the legalization efforts that are being financed and pushed by the Trulieve company, the MMTC, multi-state operator, Trulieve, is really pushing for this legalization effort, which is probably going to pass with enthusiasm in 2024. However,
jinx.
Yeah, 2024. However, not quite jinx, but I'll let you have
It
it.
was a total jinx.
The language behind the ballot
heard
initiative,
audience.
if you read it, it says that the current license holders are the ones that will grow for an adult use market. So if you're not holding a license by the time that passes, you're not going to grow it's going to be locked in. And that all of our
until
22
it's sued
MSOs.
because it's unconstitutional. It'll be turned over, but it might be a few more years before that happens.
I don't think it will, because if it's a citizen-ran ballot initiative that is voted on by the people, sponsored by a private sector company, it's not legislators changing, then we are voting as a state in favor or not. Yes or no. We want it or we don't. Legalization or not. This is not political heads. It's
well,
just
the problem
company.
obviously is that the people are voting on it because they hear it's recreational and it's their first opportunity,
Legalization.
only opportunity for that, right? And so of course they're in favor of that aspect, not even probably realizing that they're also they're voting for basically a monopoly by the current system, and to not allow growing by the patients or people themselves, another ridiculous thing.
I
think it's, well, you can't have two things on a ballot initiative. You can't have two directives. So the one thing about like the Regulate Florida thing, that ballot initiative, that push for legalization also included home grow, which automatically dooms it, because that you can't do two things. The Trulieve one is just one: legalization over the age of 21. Go ahead, Ty.
Well, I was going to just kind of like what Dr. Davis was saying about, like, I think a lot of the normal consumer in Florida, like, don't have the full understanding of it. Obviously, we work at the lab, so we have a very in-depth view, but, marijuana in Florida is not necessarily as safe as you might think it is. It's not it shouldn't be as expensive as it definitely is. And the people, no one's benefiting from it. Like the people working at dispensaries, the people growing it in the fields for these big companies aren't benefiting from that. They're making minimum wage. All of these Florida people, hopefully the listeners, go to Colorado, go to Michigan, go to a horizontal state and see what that looks like, see what the prices look like, how much better the quality is, how much better your selection is, from store to store, inside the store, everything. And then go back to Florida and like see if that's really what you want out of the system. If it's worth, pushing legalization as fast as possible, no matter the consequences, because you're gonna get worse quality. You're gonna get companies that don't really care what they're putting out on the market as long as it's on the market.
But here's the problem, Ty, is that we already have certain laws and structure in place at this point. The political system that's in charge, and for whatever reason, I don't really understand why it's a Republican Democrat thing, because everyone is in favor of cannabis, but
everybody loves pot.
But not the Republican Party in Florida. Not officially, maybe unofficially. And so they're not, they're nothing gets passed from a legislative perspective for cannabis that's positive, really. And so the only route is to do it through the people. But we've seen, a few times that it's been tried that they just can't get enough votes and signatures. It's not organized enough. DeSantis actually made it more difficult to do that.
This will be an ace. People are going to vote in favor.
And and maybe what people don't really realize is this is basically being put forward by Trulieve, because it's going to
100%.
It's going to enrich Trulieve beyond their wildest imagination, and particularly if they can sneak it in that nobody else can grow, only the current license holders, which they dominate.
So simple. It's 2 or 3 sentences in a small paragraph, and it's very, very telling as to what so much history behind it. But yes, it will create some of actually probably the most profitable oligopoly, which is not monopoly is one. So oligopoly is many.
Accurate.
So it'll be an oligopoly of some of the most successful cannabis companies in the history of the United States of America, or companies, not just cannabis.
Orchestrated by evil genius Kim Rivers.
I mean, I'd love to give her credit for this, but I don't know if it was all her or just
But I definitely hear what you're saying. Like, people can't fix Florida's system. It's not just cannabis, it's broken. It has so many problems that we don't need to begin on all that. But go see what it should look like, and then come back and think about whether you want to spend more money and support that, or go talk to your local dealer straight up. Hey, they're gonna have better stuff. They're gonna care about your quality better, and
they want return business. Local guy.
The more you support any of that, the more you give them money. That's just continuing that. I don't know. It's just, there's no solution to it, but I have a hard time supporting it, knowing they don't care about, if what I'm smoking on, and
it's going to pass like that.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's a good way for us to end the show today, because it's very eye-opening perspective from someone who was in the Florida market, is out of the Florida market in another market that's adult use and open. And so Ty's perspective is definitely unique, because he's seen the patient side here and there as adult use. So definitely the messaging today is just go see what other options, not buy local from a drug dealer. So we do support local, but in this case, because of the law, we're going to say just go do your homework before you vote. And like you should every single time.
And don't limit that education to your state. Florida is very unique the way they're handling.
We are what the Florida. We are living life by a
how
series
other
of
things
what
are working.
Exactly.
I don't know. It's really interesting state to state. It's way different. And Illinois is not necessarily better. We have 40% tax on a lot of marijuana. That's not that great.
That's a lot.
But there's some things that are better. Sure. We have home grow. So
nobody's got a perfect program yet. It's always evolving, but I just feel like Florida needs to it's classic Florida. We'll just say that. What the Florida. But Ty, it was so good having you on today. Thank you for your very unique and very enlightened perspective. And I love the fact that you are full facial hair forward. And I hope that Brenda and Scotty are doing phenomenal. That little dog has an Adidas tracksuit that I gave him for the cold weather, and he looks so cute in it. So thank you for coming on. We know you got to get back to it. So
thank you
welcome
for
back.
having me. Very good connecting again. Been a minute since we got to be face to face, but anytime, as long as my schedule permits. And wish you guys the best, of course. Thanks as always.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. All right,
Go ahead, Justin.
Hit it. Jane Nasty reporting for Marijuana Mind. Keep it lean, keeping it green as.
Hit it. Like, I thought you were about to rap. This is great. All right. We'll talk to you next week. Nice red thumb. I'm not going to say what it reminds me of. All right. Bye.